NASA took two men with identical DNA and sent one of them to space for a year. When he came back, his cells looked younger. His brain worked worse. And 7% of how his body reads its own genetic code had been quietly rewritten. 3 systems, 3 opposite directions. Same body, none of it was a malfunction. Every single change was his body doing exactly what 4 billion years of evolution built it to do. The problem is, 4 billion years of evolution never built anything for a place with no gravity. Let's start with the part that aged him backward. Before the mission, the prediction was simple. Space is stressful. Stress ages you. So Scott Kelly's telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of his chromosomes, should shrink faster than his twin brothers on the ground. Clean experiment. Obvious outcome. The results came back wrong. Scott's telomeres didn't shrink, they grew, 14.5% longer. By the numbers, he came back biologically younger than the brother who'd stayed safely on Earth. 48 hours later, they collapsed. Not back to normal, past it. Shorter than before he left. The kind of short linked to accelerated aging and higher cancer risk. The body gave him a loan, then it collected. And the telomeres were just one system. His bones were thinning, 1.5% of his femur density gone every month, as if the skeleton were quietly deciding it was no longer needed. His heart changed shape, not metaphorically. It rounded from an oval into a sphere, like a balloon released from the fist that had been squeezing it for 46 years. His immune system went to full alert. Not because he was sick, because nothing around him matched anything it had ever seen before. And his cognition? Slower reaction time. Reduced accuracy on every test, 6 months after landing. Still not back to where he started. One trip. One body. Every system pulling in a different direction, and every single one of them was following orders. The question is, whose orders? And written when? About 30,000 years ago, a group of humans climbed onto the Tibetan Plateau. At 4,500 meters, the air holds 40% less oxygen than at sea level. Your muscles weaken. Your thinking fogs. Your blood starts to thicken. The body's emergency fix, cramming more red cells into every drop to carry what little oxygen there is. But thicker blood means clots, strokes, organ failure. Most animals that wander above the tree line come back down. Or they don't come back at all. These humans stayed. Not because they were stronger, not because they grew bigger lungs or wider airways, because their bodies did something far stranger. They changed which parts of their DNA were being read. Your genetic code is the same in every cell you have, but not every cell runs the same parts of it. A liver cell runs liver instructions. A bone cell runs bone instructions. And the thing choosing which instructions to run isn't inside you, it's outside you. The environment, the air, the altitude, the food, the light, the environment writes the settings, and the body obeys. On the Tibetan Plateau, thin air wrote a new setting. It switched on a gene called EPAS1, sometimes called the super athlete gene. When active, it lets the body do more with less oxygen. It doesn't overproduce red blood cells, doesn't thicken the blood. It finds a quieter, more efficient path. That's why Tibetans can live comfortably at altitudes that would hospitalize most people within weeks. But the strangest part isn't what the gene does. It's where it came from. EPAS1 didn't come from human ancestors. Geneticists traced it to Denisovans, a cousin species that had already gone extinct tens of thousands of years before these humans ever reached the plateau. Somewhere in the deep past, the two species had crossed paths, interbred, and the gene slipped across. Then it went silent. Generation after generation, carried in the code, never activated. Dormant. Invisible, doing nothing. Until the altitude switched it on. A dead species gave a living one the tool to survive a place that should have killed them. The body had held that gene for millennia, used none of it, and ran it the moment the environment demanded. This is how the system works. It collects instructions it may never use. It holds them across centuries. And when the environment changes, it rewrites the settings, without asking, without waiting, without you ever knowing it happened. For millions of years, that worked. Deserts, frozen coastlines, jungles. Every new environment wrote new settings, and the body adapted. But every one of those environments had one thing in common. Gravity, atmosphere, a sunrise every 24 hours, a ground pulling you down at 9.8 meters per second squared. The settings changed. The constants never did. Until 2015, the International Space Station orbits Earth at 17,000 miles per hour. Inside, there is no up. There is no down. Blood doesn't fall. It drifts. And for the first time in 4 billion years of life on this planet, a human body entered an environment with no gravity. And the system that had been rewriting settings for millions of years found nothing in its reference data that applied. It rewrote anyway. Scott Kelly's heart had spent 46 years pumping blood against gravity, fighting to push it up to his brain, fighting to keep it from pooling in his legs. In microgravity, that fight disappeared. So the heart did what any muscle does when resistance vanishes. It softened. The oval that a lifetime of gravity had shaped rounded into a sphere. Not a failure. A new setting. Optimized for a world where pushing blood upward was no longer the job. His skeleton started to disappear. On Earth, every step you take sends a signal to your bones. This structure is load-bearing. Keep building. Remove the steps, remove the load, and the signal goes quiet. His bones read the silence as an instruction. You are not needed here. 1.5% of his femur, gone every month. His immune system fired on everything. Not an infection, not an injury, 4 billion years of calibration data, and none of it matched. The body couldn't tell what was dangerous and what wasn't, so it treated everything as a threat. Every response followed the same logic. Read the environment, rewrite the settings, adapt, and every setting made perfect sense for the place he was in. Then the place changed. His skin hadn't touched a surface in 340 days. The first time he lay down on a bed, every point of contact burned. His body broke out in rashes. Not from illness, from bed sheets. His legs swelled to twice their normal size. A year's worth of fluid that had been drifting through his chest suddenly remembered which way was down. He'd grown 1.5 inches in space. His spine, freed from compression, had stretched like a spring released. On Earth, he lost it almost immediately. He described the first few days as the worst flu of his life. If he hadn't known what was happening, he said, he would have gone to the emergency room 8 months before he felt normal. The cruel part isn't that space hurt him. The cruel part is that his body did exactly what the Tibetans' bodies did 30,000 years ago. It read the environment, it rewrote the settings, it adapted. And when the environment changed back, every adaptation became a wound. That is the mismatch. And you don't need orbit to trigger it. Right now, your bones are having the same conversation with gravity that Scott Kelly's had. Every hour you spend sitting is an hour your skeleton hears silence where it expects signal. The same mechanism that dissolved his femur is reading the load on yours. Just slower, quieter, spread across decades instead of months. The light hitting your eyes right now is telling your body what time it is. If it's artificial, if it's late, if your screen says one thing and your window says another, the system is rewriting. Cortisol shifts, melatonin stalls, metabolism reorganizes. People who work night shifts for a decade don't just feel tired, they have measurably higher rates of heart disease, diabetes, and certain cancers. Not from the labor, from the rewrite. The system doesn't know you're in an office, doesn't know the light is artificial, doesn't know you're sitting by choice. It reads the environment, it rewrites the settings. Same system, same logic, different room. After 340 days in space, 93% of Scott Kelly's gene expression returned to normal. 7% did not. Not because something broke, because the system did what it has done for 4 billion years. It read the environment, it rewrote the settings, and it moved on. The same way it activated a dead species gene when the air went thin on a mountain 30,000 years ago. Scott Kelly's body wasn't broken by space. It was rewritten by it. Yours is being rewritten right now, by the light in your room, by how long you've been sitting, by whether you slept last night. The only difference is, you don't get a twin on the ground to show you what you would have been. If this is how you want to see the world, ancient systems, modern consequences, subscribe. There's a lot more to untangle.